All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear me? Let me know if you can't. Okay, so assignment 2 is up and it's right here. So I guess we can go over this real quick. Um, some of this stuff we haven't gone over, but we're gonna go over that today. And so you should be able to, um, you know, you should be able to do this entire assignment by the end of the weekend. And then we can talk about it on Monday. Maybe I go over a solution like the last time. Again, these assignments that I'm going to be handing out will probably be every Friday or on a Saturday, and it should take you no more than a weekend to do it if you put in like a few hours every day. And obviously use the Discord. Please, please, please use the Discord if you're running into any problems. Again, Googling stuff on your own is totally something you do. And if you want me to check your work, give you some notes, always, feel free to DM me or you can even post it on the Discord, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Send it to me, Victoria, or Corbin, doesn't matter. And then we can give you feedback on, things that you can improve on, or maybe you misunderstand some concepts or something. Anyways, whatever, we can figure it out. Okay. Um, so yeah. So this is assignment 2. Um, uh, is basically creating a sign up form. Basically, what we're going over, but I want you to make your own. And then we're going to have a few, a little bit different requirements here than what I'm going to be showing you. But again, very similar. So it says right here, create HTML sign up form. So notice I'm saying sign up form, so hence, the proper HTML semantics. With proper HTML semantics, so make sure you're using the proper, tags, like kind of what I'm highlighting here. And I just say here, a typical sign-up form consists of an email, a first name, a last name, a password, confirm password, and then we're going to add here a checkbox for the biggest lie. I have read and agreed to the terms of service. Okay, so you should have something like that, okay? And I also want you to have the quotes in there, so I want you to figure out how you can add quotes. And then a submit button for the form. Now notice I'm saying not a button, a submit button, which we talked about the differences. Here's the key word. So I'll let you try and figure that out. All right, so the requirements are as follows. All the fields are required. Okay, they're required. Enforce this using the appropriate attributes. Required. All fields must have placeholder text or a label to specify what the input field is for. The submit button must have the correct attribute. Do not rely on default behavior. I went over the default behavior for a button in a form in the last video, in the last session that we had. So you can go back there and watch that. Intercept and prevent the form's default behavior. So we kind of already went over that in the last video. I'm gonna, you're gonna see the code here also again. And then I want you to validate the passwords to ensure they match. This is what's called client-side validation, okay? And then I want you to notify the user that the passwords do not match if that is the case. I'm telling you to use the alert message API. So there's this alert API that we can use in the browser. And I'll show you an example of that today. And I want you to use this to let the user know, hey, your passwords don't match. And then finally, we're going to create a JSON object that contains the following properties. So we want to create a JSON object with this shape. Okay, you have a key called fname, and the value is going to be a string. A key lname, and the value will be a string. Email, string. Password, string. And then TOS agreement will be a Boolean. Okay, so Boolean is just true or false. And so hopefully from here you can figure out where the values are going to come from. Okay. Then the last thing we do is I want you to display the JS object to the window using the alert API. There's only one I there. Okay. Now, the alert, if you don't know how to use this, again, we're going to go over this, but you should Google the alert. So if you're, if I was you and I didn't know how a specific API worked, you say something like alert JavaScript MSDN, you hit Google, and then boom, you want to go here, the MDN from Mozilla, go here as much as you can, always try and go here. Then you click on this, and then you read, okay? And then you read. So read the documentation, look at the examples, try it out, and then try and do it on your own, and then see if it works. And then if it works, then good to go. All right? Anybody have any questions on this? And I'm gonna paste onto the chat here to please sign in. I'm gonna put this here as well. Please sign in. So make sure you sign in, please. Okay. All right. So if nobody has any questions, if that's straightforward, then we will move on to finishing this right here. So let's open this up with live server. So open with live server. Okay, here we go. And this is what we have so far. Okay. Okay, so right now we have this form. Okay. And I have shown you how to do, oh, so actually we went through a lot already, huh? It's like we did. Yeah, I showed you how to do the JSON object. And we went over the required stuff. Okay, so I hit that. We also talked about yeah, actually, so yeah, so you should be more than prepared for the assignment, because I think the assignment is actually pretty in line with this. So I will go over some stuff, some extra stuff, to give you an example of something. Let's do an example of like a checkbox or something. Actually, let's do a radio button. It's very similar to the checkbox. Again, it's slightly different, but what I'm going to show you will work for both. That is, actually, no, I'll just do it for the input. Let's say I wanted to have, well, let's look at the requirement here. I say that all fields must have a placeholder text or a label to specify what the input field is for. So right now, my input field looks like this, okay? When I click here, it becomes focused, right? I can actually type, right? I click over here, it becomes focused. You notice that the border becomes a little darker. That's showing you, that's called a focus ring. So it shows you like what you're currently, on, right? What's currently in focus. Okay. But let's say your boss says, "Hey, this looks good, but we really want to have a label here right next to it, so we can like be a little bit more, you know, whatever. We want to be a little bit more explicit of like what this field is supposed to be. That's fair. Totally fair. So okay. So let's add a label here that has email and then one that says password and that's associated with it. Okay, so let's do that. Let's say your boss says, "Hey, we want to change the UI for whatever reason." Okay, let's go. So let's do a label and we'll type in here email like that. Okay, let's go back. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay. Now again, as far as like the looks, don't worry about it. That's not what HTML is for. HTML is just content organization. It's just a structure for our content. CSS comes next week, and we're going to make this look really nice. Okay? Okay, so there's our label. Now, when I click on this label, I'm not sure how much I can prove to you that I'm clicking. Okay, yeah, so you can see I'm clicking here. When I click here, it doesn't focus this input field. right? These two things should be basically together, right? Because they're connected. So it would be cool if I click on this label that this input field gets highlighted, in focus, okay? Now, currently that's not possible because there's no linkage between this label and this input field, okay? So let's create a link to say that this label is for the following input, okay? So how do we create that link? So in order to create a link between a label and an input field, the element that you're trying to link to must have a unique ID. So here I'm going to give this an ID. I'm going to call this, uh, login form email or something, right? It has to be unique to the entire document, not just for this uh, form, but for the entire document. That's how IDs work. Okay. So there you go. So this input has an ID of login form email. Okay. The reason I'm putting email is because that's what this input is supposed to represent. It's supposed to contain the value for email. Okay, cool. So now in my label, all I have to say is that this label is for, not a for loop, but for login form email. Okay, now I hit save. I go back. When I click on email, my input field gets highlighted. See, I didn't click over here. I'm gonna click away. I'm gonna click on email. See, they're connected now, right? That's pretty dope, right? Look how little code we're actually writing, and look how much functionality we're getting out of it. It's pretty dope. All right. So let's do the same thing for a password, but let's try and do it a different way. Okay. Now, labels can also contain, you labels um, is a type of tag that allows it to have children. Okay, when we say children, is that we can nest things inside of between the tags. So here we have an opening tag label, just like this, and then we close it. So there's our closing tag. So usually when you do this, you'll have like an empty space like this. So we have our opening tag. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see. We have our opening tag here label, and then we have the closing tag. Now remember, the closing tag has that forward slash there. I'm going to move this input field up one like that. And then above it, I'm just going to put, PWD for password, or I'll just spell it out, password. There you go. Okay, so now I have nested this input field inside this label. Okay, so when I go back, when I click on password now, you can see that the input field has now been highlighted. So there are two different ways of doing this. Okay, on the one hand, I could use the ID to make it very explicit that this label is for this input field, or you can nest it. Now you might be asking, which is better? Okay, and the answer is, it depends on the situation. Okay, sometimes, most of the time, it's better that you do it like this. It's self-documenting, and each element is completely separate. Okay, this is also easier for screen readers because you have this for. When you have a screen reader read the label, it'll actually tell you, it'll give you some extra help of what the following input is for. So this is really good for screen readers. Okay, this one, not so much. Okay, but notice that the functionality still works, but you lose out on the screen reader support. Okay. Okay, cool. Now, I want to show you an example of using a checkbox because that's in the assignment, so I don't want to like have you go completely blind. So let's imagine we have a checkbox here, right? What's a pretty normal checkbox on a login form? The would you like to save, you know, keep me logged in. I think that's what it's called. Keep me logged in. Okay, so let's build one of those. So let's build a label here. Okay, we'll call this keep me logged in. Okay. And usually it's just true or false, right? It's just going to be a checkbox. So I say input type checkbox. Okay. So this is pretty standard. You've seen this before, right? Keep me logged in, and then you click on it, right? Let me zoom in here. It says keep me logged in, and you click on that, and it's like yes or no, right? And usually what ends up happening is it stores like a cookie or into your local storage. It stores something in order to keep track on the client who you are, so the next time it doesn't have to ask you for your username and password, right? We've all seen this, right? Okay. So we want this to be, we want these to be vertically stacked. Right now, this looks terrible, right? So one way we can solve this for now is using line breaks. So let's put a couple of those here. There you go. So keep me logged in. Okay. Now, when I click on this label, you'll notice that the checkbox doesn't change, right? Because they're not linked together. How can I link them together? Somebody tell me in the chat. What are the steps that must be done in order for me to link the label to this checkbox? So Jim Bob says for ID. Okay, cool. So where do I put the for? And where do I get the ID? So let's be a little bit more specific here. You're on the right track though. Anybody want to help Jim out? Give your input an ID inside input, then reference it inside label. Okay, cool. So what should the ID be? Give me an ID for it. Does it have to be unique? Why or why not? So Tarek says that the IDs do not have to be unique. Is that right? Anybody? Doesn't have to be unique. Okay. Anybody else think that it should be unique or not be unique, or they do? Okay, so we have two conflicting opinions here. So let's try it out. So I'm gonna give this ID the same ID that I gave this one. So I'm gonna call it login form email, right? Because he said they don't have to be unique, right? That's what you said. All right, so here I'm gonna give this an ID of login form email as well. So now this ID, I want it to be linked to this one. So they have the same ID. Okay. I'm sorry, not ID. This one's supposed to be for. So the label is for login form email. Okay. Let's go back here. I'm gonna click on keep me logged in. Oh, it activated the email. Let me click away. Click again. Oh, it's activating the email. Why is that? Well, let's look at our logic here. My label is saying for login form email. Now I told you that sometimes I reference this thing called a DOM tree, a tree. Okay, so what is this tree? So let's bring out you know, in this organization, we have only the best in editing software. Okay, the best of editing software here. Okay, so here we're going to use only the best. So here we go. MS Paint, baby. Let's go. All right. So this is how it works. So let's look at our HTML that we have here, our markdown or our markup language stuff that we have here. Let's take a look at this and let's see what the tree looks like. Okay. So we have this HTML tag. Okay. So that's the first. Our root, we call this the root, is this HTML tag. All right. I'm doing this with a mouse because I don't have a pen. Okay. This is called a root. Okay. Now what's in the root? Well, we have this head tag. Okay. So HTML has a child called head. Okay. And it has 3 children, meta, 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 and title. Okay, so meta, meta, meta. So there's 3 of them. So these are all meta. Oh, this is terrible. Meta, and then we have the title. Okay. And then we have this body tag. So that's a child of the HTML. Okay. And the first thing we have is an H1. So that's a child of body, this H1 tag. Okay. Next, we have this article tag right here. Okay. Now we have article. I'm going to just call this art for now. And then article has a child, H2. Okay. And then H2 has a sibling. We call these siblings. When they're right next to each other, we call them siblings, and that's a form. So the form is a sibling of H2, which is a child of art, which is a grandchild to body, which is a great-great-grandchild to HTML. You see how this is working? Why we're using this sibling terminology is because we're building a tree. Okay, so there's our, let's see, form. Not fort, form. There's our form right there. And form has a child here. The first child there is a label. Okay, and label has a sibling, i.e. form has another child, input. Okay, and then we have this BRs. I'll skip those. And then we have the rest. Okay, so dot, 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 dot. Okay, hopefully you can see this pattern here. Is this making sense to everybody? Is anybody lost with this tree? This is what we call the DOM tree. Okay, this is what it looks like. Now, what I'm trying to go over is why this isn't working. Why is it when I click on keep me logged in, it highlights the email, and why I say that IDs must be unique. Okay, here's the problem. This input right here, right, which represents this one right here, has the ID login form email. Okay, so this one has ID, you know, the login dot 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 dot. Okay, login form email. This is our email one. Okay, so let me, I guess, login email. That's the ID, right? Sorry, I don't have a pen, so this is hard. Okay. And then this label is trying to reference login form email, and this one also has login form email. Okay, so let's bring up our amazing artwork here. So there is a label here. That label. Okay, there's another label, and this one has a 4, and it's trying to reference this login email. I'm terribly sorry. I'm doing this with my mouse. Okay. And label has a sibling, right? Form has a child, and there's another input. Okay, this is our checkbox. Okay, and it has the ID, the same thing, which is login, email, or whatever. Okay. Now, obviously, this is a checkbox that has to do with whether or not you want to, stay signed in. That's what it says. Keep me logged in. Okay. Obviously, the ID is terrible because it doesn't make any sense for this. But again, I'm just trying to make a point here. When label has this for login email, the way it works is we do what's called a breadth first search. That is breadth. I think this is how you spell it. I think there's an A in there. First search. Okay. Now in computer science, this is one way you can walk through a tree. What do we have here? We have a tree. So how does the breadth first search algorithm work? Well, it goes like this. You start at the root, then you go to the first child that you have, and then you go through every single one of those children and you start searching. Okay. Now, is there an ID here called login email? No. Then so it's like, okay, I'm done here. Let's go to the body. Is there an ID here? Email? No. Is there ID here? No. What about here? No. 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 Oh, there is? I found it. It's this one. Remember, this input is this one. Okay? So, HTML says the following. IDs must be unique. It will return the first ID it finds. It will not return a collection of IDs. It will return the very first element that it finds with that ID. So it found it. It has this login email. So it returned it. So now this label has this for login email. Even though we wanted it to link to this one, because it has the same ID, it's actually going to link it to the very first thing it finds in the entire document. Not next to it, not in the same subtree, in the entire tree. Which is why when I link this unique ID, I'm actually linking it to that. Which is why we have this behavior. If you have IDs on your HTML elements and they are not unique, you will have undefined behavior. There's no telling what would happen. There's no guarantees. So the IDs must be unique. So here, this has to do with keeping you logged in. So maybe we should call this, I don't know, login form. We call it, cache creds, cache credentials or whatever. So here, if I want this label to be linked to this one, I should, use that unique ID, cache creds for cache credentials. So now when I click on keep me logged in, it's able to link it with the checkbox. It's no longer confused. It knows exactly which one, right? So the IDs must be unique for the entire document. So Alex says pretty much like variables. Yeah, exactly. If you had two variables that were named the same, how do you know which one you're referring to? It's ambiguous, right? But in HTML, it's not going to crash your code, right? It doesn't crash your web page. It's just there's undefined behavior. That's what they say. It's just undefined behavior. We don't know which one, right? It's always going to be the first one based off the breadth first search algorithm. That's why it's going to go. But if you're expecting a different result, again, you're getting undefined behavior because your IDs were not unique. So you have to make them unique. Okay, so there we go. Now our label is connected to our checkbox. Beautiful. And this is what it looks like on a mobile device. Okay, very cool. Does that make sense? So hopefully my work of art was not that terrible. Hopefully you guys can read that, and hopefully this made sense. So now, as you're writing your HTML, understand that what you're actually building is a rendering tree. You're building this tree out, okay? And this is going to come in handy. This knowledge of how this works is going to come in handy when we start doing CSS, because CSS uses a lot of terminology of like siblings, nth child, uh, parent, stuff like that. So we have to understand how the HTML content is actually laid out. So when we write our CSS rules, we know what elements are actually going to be picked. So we know how the rules, the CSS stylings will be applied. Okay. So it's a nice exercise that we actually went through this. Okay. So hopefully this makes sense. Okay. Take a screenshot or, whatever. But yeah, so it's going to go through a breadth first search, going through its child from left to right into every child. And it's going to return the very first ID it comes into contact. Even if you had multiple IDs after it that were exactly the same, the very first one it finds, that's the one it returns. So IDs must be unique. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So on Wednesday, we went through I'm gonna type in like my email here. Okay, like that. Type in a bogus password. But notice that, again, your boss said, hey, we want to add a keep me logged in. We don't want to have the users constantly logging in. So like, okay, so that's cool. Now when I hit log in, I have this new data in my form. Let's see if the form is able to pick it up. So we have the email and then we have the password, but we don't have the, keep me logged in value in here. We need that as well. Why isn't it picking it up? Does anybody know? Why does this input and this input get picked up, but not this one? What's different? What am I missing? What's the requirement for the form in order to be able to pick up that it's going to be part of the data that we're going to send? What am I missing? Let's look at the JavaScript code that we have down here. Okay. By the logic that we wrote right here, do I make any reference ever to email or password? Right here. Do I ever make a reference to email or password? Let me know if I am. Am I? Anybody? Anybody? Nobody wants to take a guess? I don't see it there. Right. Right? I don't make a reference to email or password. Yet somehow my 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 payload, my JS object, has that information. Okay? It's because of the way I constructed this. Okay? It's completely dynamic. Remember we went through this whole thing where I actually showed what this actually was if you hover over it. The data structure here is an array where the first element in the array is a string and the second element is the value of the form. Okay? The string represents the name of that input, and the second value is just the value of that input. Now notice it's not a string. because not all data will be a string. It could be if it's a checkbox, it's going to be true or false. If it's a file, it's going to be not a string, it's going to be a file, right? And that's going to be, different. Okay? So, because we built this like this and we didn't hard code anything, right? We were good engineers. We were smart about this. Okay? All I have to do is add something to this that is missing. Okay? These two have it. And this thing is missing something. Okay? And it's a specific thing. I'm highlighting it here. What is it? There's a specific attribute that is required, okay, inside of in an input field that should be part of the form data. If it's not present, the form won't pick it up. What is that attribute? Let me zoom in on this code here. Maybe you can see it better. Remember, these two work, but this one is not getting picked up. What is it missing? Nobody? Take a guess? Any guess? All right. Nobody can help me? All right. The answer is we need the name attribute. We need a name. If it's not defined, it won't get picked up in the form. So we say name equals, and we give it an ID, an ID for this input field that's going to be part of the JSON object that we're going to build. So here on this one, I call it email. Over here, I call it PWD. Call it whatever you want. And here, I'm just going to call it cache dash creds or something like that. I don't know. Call it whatever you want. Whatever you think. Keep me logged in is a good, whatever that's good for. Okay. Find a good name for it. Okay, and that's it. That's all it was missing. Again, because we built this in a dynamic fashion where we're not making direct references to the inputs, we're constructing our payload dynamically. We already took care of the hard part. All I have, if your boss says, hey, we need to add another input field, no worries. This will pick it up. All I have to do is make sure this follows these rules. And the only requirement here is that it needs to have a name. Give it a name. All right, here we go. So now I can type in my email there, type in a password, keep me logged in, hit login. Boom. Cache creds is on. Let's go. Right? And that's it. That's all there was to it. We need to add extra, extra inputs for our form. It'll get picked up. Right? So let's see what happens if I disable it. So I uncheck it, hit login. It doesn't show up. Okay, it doesn't show up because it's false, right? It has a false value. Now, I think one thing we can do here is if we add the required, it will always have a value there, if I remember correctly. So I'll type in my email here, and my password. If I hit login, oh, I did hit that, hit login. If you want to proceed. Oh, okay. So we'll ditch this part. Okay. So here we go. Put in my email. Put in a fake password. Then if I don't hit the login, it's not present. Now on the server side, okay, if this particular input field, because it's a checkbox, is not actually present, then we'll know that they didn't check it. If it is present, okay, then we know that they checked it on. Okay. Now there's other things we can do to avoid this, but you know, for now that's fine. When we do the backend, you'll see that we can do extra validation, so we can make sure that this is in fact getting picked up properly. Okay. Does that make sense? Is everybody cool with that? Is anybody confused or have any questions about that? Nobody? Okay. All right. Now, we want to have this sign up form, right? So when I click on this, in case I don't have an actual account, I want to be able to click sign up. And I want it to take me somewhere. So how do I do that? Okay. Well, we need to build another HTML file. We need another resource. So we're gonna create a new file, hit this button, serve new file, or you can right click here and say new file. I'm gonna call this sign-up.html. Okay, there we go. Okay, then again, we need to have our boilerplate. So shift 1 for that exclamation mark. Hit enter. Tab. Change the title to sign up. Hit save. And then in the body, I'm just going to type in sign up. That way we know that we're in the sign up page now. Okay. And in our index.html file, where we have this link, before we just had a hash, that way we stayed in the same URL. Now we can just say we want to go to slash signup dash up.html, or whatever you end up calling it. You call it whatever you want. I just call it sign dash up.html. Okay, and then you hit save. So now when we go here, this sign up button, this link will now be linked to that HTML document. So when I click on it, it takes me to sign up. Notice that this changed. It loaded up the next page. Okay. Now the assignment is for you to build this page out. That's your assignment, right? That you're supposed to do on the weekend, is to build this out. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? How we can link things, right? Let's just do a slash, sign up URL. You could also be a little bit more, explicit and say we need to go to HTTP, okay, ://, that's the protocol. Localhost is our domain, and our port is 5500 / sign up .html. You could also do that. That's totally valid. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because that's where my server is. My server lives. It's right here. Now, for those that don't know, this 127.0.0.1, that's called localhost or home, but we usually just call it localhost. It's where it's like it's your computer. Okay, it's your machine. Okay. So instead of doing localhost, which I think is easier, if you want to memorize 127.0.0.1, you could put that in there, which is just the IP address. The IP address 127.0.0.1 will resolve itself to localhost. So if I go back and I click sign up, it takes me to the exact same place. So if I open up a new tab and I type in localhost 5500, it takes me to the exact same place. Hit sign up. Here it's showing 127 because I explicitly put that in the URL link. But notice that here I'm in localhost, here I'm in sign up, or 127, whatever. And I'm taken to the exact same place. That's because this is the IP version, and this is more of a friendly name, something that's easier for us to understand. So for example, I can go over here. Actually, do I have? Let me show you what I mean. So here I can say something like ping https google.com. It should pop up the IP address. Please check. Okay. May not like, might have to do the whole thing. Can I find phones? Google.com. Oh, that's weird. Okay. I can just, I can just type in here google.com, right click here, and then if I go to my network tab, let's do this again. Here, go to the headers. Ugh. Okay, doesn't have the, should have it around here. I'm just trying to get the IPv4 IP of this website. It gave me the remote address here is in IPv6. So let me Google Google's IP. Google IPv4 address. So not the DNS. I want that. Let's see. What is Google's IPv4 address? It's not that. It's like 72 something. Actually, I can just say, what is my IP, my public IP? And let's click on this. And then, okay, so not this one. Where's the one you can type in the, you can type in the domain and then, I forgot how to do that. Dang it. Forgetting how to do that. But anyways, if you were to type in the IP address of Google, okay, it would result to the same thing. All I'm trying to say is that these two are the same thing. Okay. This one is just the IP address. This will resolve to this, which gives you the exact same thing. That's all I'm trying to say. It's a networking thing. So you can use either or. Okay. If you use just a forward slash first, this means home and then sign up HTML. So basically where you're currently at, take the domain and attach this to it. So localhost slash signup.html is actually what the link will be. Okay. So this is how you can link documents. This is one way. Okay. There are different ways, but this is one way. This is probably what you're going to be doing like 99% of the time. Okay. Does that make sense? How we can link? I can click on sign up. How it takes me here. Is that cool? Okay. All right. So if So if nobody has any other questions, we will. Aha! Found it. So I did something called a reverse a DNS lookup. I just typed in the domain, and boom, there's the IP address. And let me just copy this. So if I do the protocol, which is HTTPS, and I just type in that IP address, it will give me google.com. That's all I was trying to say. That whole thing. In fact, if you do it that way, it should give you a resolution. Oops. Okay, if I right click here, go to inspect, go to network tab here, and if I hit enter, you should see a bunch of stuff that happens. Let me refresh the HTTPS. Oh, why is it doing that? Literally just worked right now. Oh, maybe it didn't like that I did that. But it worked. It worked the first time. So there you have it. So here, yeah, you just use a DNS lookup, put in the domain, you can get whatever. So if you wanted like Amazon, Amazon.com, DNS lookup. Okay, so there's a couple of them. So let's try this one first. So we're gonna right click here, go to copy this, type in HTTPS : there you go. That should take us to Amazon. Okay, it doesn't like that. I don't know. It's starting to block me. It doesn't like me doing that. Okay, it's fine. Okay, cool. All right. So if anybody has any questions about that, I say we move on. So it's 7 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions on the assignment 2? Because it's honestly all I really have about the HTML stuff. So we might actually be able to end this early today. So if nobody has any questions about the assignment, or if you want me to go over another topic, let me know if you have any questions. If not, then I guess we all get to go home early. Okay? Nobody? Can I have early today? Can I leave early? Yeah. Anything else we can add to the assignment for style points? Anything else we can add to this? Okay. For style points, let's see. Well, make sure you have a heading like this. Make sure you have a subheading for your form. So remember what our code looks like this. I'll actually be posting this on the Discord server, so you guys can actually see this as an example. Okay, so you guys aren't completely blind. So you notice here I have a H1, and here I have an article tag, and this article I have a H2 login. So if you want format something similar like this, okay. I would recommend not to use the labels for these, because the placeholder stuff is self-documenting. That's what I would do. I think this looks a lot nicer. It looks a lot cleaner. For style points, yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I can think of. Oh, when you have this version, but for the sign up, have a button that can take you back. So like, let's say you clicked on the sign up by accident. You don't want them to hit the back button. You want to have a button that says log in. Like, have you guys ever seen something like that? Where it says log in and you go to the login screen, it says actually you want to sign up, so you can go back and forth. So you can, there's a way for you to go back and forth. So do that. So add an extra link that can take you back to the login page from the sign up page. Okay, do that. Make sure you have something very similar to this, and I think that's it. Okay. Now, hopefully the assignment is enough to get you, started on, hacking some HTML together. And then next week we're gonna start making things looking yes, a return to home. Yeah, basically. Well, our home page just so happens to have the login form. That happens to be the case. Um, I wouldn't call it, go home. It'd just be like, you know, log in, and the home page happens to have the login page. Okay, that it just so happens to be that's the case. That may not always be the case. Okay. Um, Next week we're going to be doing CSS, so making things look pretty, and then we're also going to use something called Tailwind. So if you want to know a little bit more about Tailwind, this is what Tailwind looks like. Look at this. This looks like crap, and it's looking better. Look at the little bit of code that they're writing. So little. Look at these utilities. Oh wow, look at that. Look how pretty. So just with a little bit of utility classes, we can do a lot of things. Look at, we changed the color here. This one's being a little off. Look at that. Boom. Oh wow, look, it's also reactive. Look at that. Oh my goodness. This, I'm going to show you how to do all of this. Okay? Look, and we haven't even left the HTML. We haven't left. Okay? So if you want to learn how to create stuff like this and make it look all nice and whatever, we will be using Tailwind next week. We will be doing introduction on Friday. Monday and Wednesday, we're going to be doing CSS. And then on Friday, I'm going to introduce you to some Tailwind stuff, okay? And then we're going to be using Tailwind and CSS, both of it, basically on and again. For assignment, do you want a button to go back or a link? A link. Make a sentence that says, you know, would you like to log in? Something like that. So let's see if there's a log. I don't know if there's something here. Here's like you can log in here. Oh, this is the GitHub, so they don't have a. Let's see. See, I don't go on a lot of social media stuff, so I really don't know anything. I'm sure you guys have um seen stuff like that where you can log in, and if you don't have an account, you hit create account, and then there's always a button that says, log in from the sign up form, so you can go back and forth, right? It's like tightly chained together. Okay. So yeah, that'd probably be it for extra style points. Okay. Other than that, I hope to see you guys on Monday. Uh, and hopefully you guys are excited to learn about some CSS. Okay. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask on the Discord. And other than that, have a good weekend. Do the assignment. If you have questions, use the Discord chat. And yeah, we'll go over the solution on Monday. And we're going to make this look nice. We will make this look very nice. Okay? All right. All right. See you guys.